to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at pitching on tonight's 7-game slate, and it's one of those ones where it's a pretty obvious night.
Oh, ooh, okay. I mean, I do see quite a few tournament options in terms of cash. I agree. Pretty obvious who you're going with on both sites and Yahoo as well. But yeah, there's some gross options as well at the bottom there. So there's definitely some guys you can just instantly take out of play. I'm looking at you, Orioles, Red Sox.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's one of the things. It's like, you look at this game here, I mean, that's the Big Ten over-under game. I mean, there's a couple other options that are fairly low scoring, but I mean, like the game like the Pirates and Mets, I mean, those two pitchers really aren't that great.
Yeah.
So
and you can avoid them. You can avoid them on this slate. It's not like a 5-gamer where everyone's bad.
Yeah.
So, like, you do have alternatives, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And first game here, you got the Blue Jays and Phillies, over-under of 8. J.A. Happ, Aaron Nola, Toronto -130 favorites. This one, I mean, Nola's been solid this year, but I mean, obviously a tough matchup against the Jays kind of really takes him out of play for me today.
Yeah, well, I guess the question is not only how good do you think Aaron Nola is against righties, but do you think he can survive that top 3? Because we kind of see that every night. If you can just get through that top 3, you're all set. But most pitchers cannot, you know? So depending on his splits against righties, I mean, I guess that could be a worthy tournament gamble, but obviously you're not looking at him in cash or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Blue Jays team, I mean, they do strike out quite a bit against right-handers. I mean, it would be a really, really bold swerve with a pretty low floor. I mean, he's coming off a bad start against Washington, but I just think price considered, it's kind of a tough risk to take. I mean, if DraftKings dropped him down to a more appropriate price tag of in that 7,000-8,000 range, maybe I'd be like, okay, I can roll the dice of GPPs. But given he's right around Tanner Roark and CC Sabathia, it kind of takes him off the map.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. On a 10-game slate, he's not in play. On a 15-game slate, he's really not in play. I think 7 games, though, that's a sweet spot where you can kind of roll with the low percentage and the low floor in tournaments. He's not a first lineup guy, but yeah, no, I agree with you. Definitely a low floor there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's faced some good offenses before and done some damage, so I think if you want to be different, get a low one play, he would probably be the guy to do it because he is one of the better pitchers on the slate.
Right.
On the other side there, I'm a big fan of Happ. He's kind of the lefty I'm targeting today. I mean, obviously him on the road's been a lot better this season, allowing a 288 WOBA. I mean, at home he's allowed a 345, so it's been a little bit different. And you look at this Phillies team, I mean, 29th in WOBA against lefties, 24% strikeout rate. Happ kind of he's a nice SP2 play. You know, I don't mind him as a single bullet GPP on FanDuel either.
I think that describes it perfectly. In that range, he's by far the best option. So if you are looking to pay down and get a super expensive stack in there, maybe the Blue Jays themselves get that top 3 in there with some other good options. Happ might be the way to go on DK, and then you can obviously pay up for your other one and feel pretty confident. But FanDuel, I don't know if I'm going to be willing to do that on FT, but I can totally understand the thought process behind it.
Yeah, because I mean, I know you like another lefty a little bit more, correct? Who we'll get to.
Yes.
Yeah. Next game here, you got the Orioles and Red Sox. Tyler Wilson versus Eduardo Rodriguez. Over under 10, Boston -148. This one's just a tough call to even make a case for any of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, Wilson hasn't been bad this year, but he hasn't been good either. So he's kind of in that mid-range, and the mid-range against this Red Sox offense is a pure, like, no, absolutely not. So, I mean, there's just no way he gets through this lineup tonight, honestly.
No, definitely not. And, I mean, the same thing goes. I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez, I mean, He threw a decent start
Yeah.
against Baltimore prior, but I'm still not looking at him as an option tonight. I mean, I'm kind of looking
Yeah.
more so as like maybe really just one or two bats. I think most of those runs are going to come from that Sox side, and that's kind of where I'm looking.
Yeah, I agree. Although I do think guys like Adam Jones and Machado could have really good days. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for.
Definitely. I mean, those two in Trumbo, I think that's kind of,
Yeah.
where you're looking, but
Right.
like you're not really looking. I mean, Sox bring 1 through 6 to the table. Really, I mean, Baltimore's a little bit different. It's a little bit more concentrated.
I think I like that game because it's going to be highly owned. You kind of see the trend with the Red Sox, and so seemingly the opposing teams, because of the Red Sox relatively weak pitching. People get attracted to those games. You see 15 to 20% on a lot of those bats. So that'll be a nice 7 gamer. It'll keep some ownership away from some of the other stacks I'm looking at here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we always kind of seem to get that on these smaller slates where there is a Sox game and they do take a lot of ownership away. I mean, you remember that Rockies Red Sox game? I mean, I believe it was a Thursday game, and it took a lot of ownership away from other games. And if you targeted elsewhere, I mean, you could kind of swerve off.
Right.
So, with that being said, I mean, neither of them are really in play. Pirates Mets next one here. Juan Nicasio versus Bartolo Colon. 7.5 over under. Mets minus 128 favorites. This one, I'm a little bit hesitant on that 7.5 over under. I think it actually could shoot and go over pretty heavily.
I'm totally with you on that. I definitely worry about Polanco against Cologne. I mean, I know Cologne's been all right, but yeah, the beginning of that lineup definitely worries me with Cologne, especially probably the second time through the order. They just chip away at you, and I don't think Cologne really has the stuff. If they start getting to him to sort of stabilize, once they start getting on base and stealing bases and getting after him. So yeah, I don't really trust that over under and that Pirates projected run total. I kind of like them tonight. So I'm not touching Cologne. Nicasio, kind of the same way you viewed him the last few slates. Like, yeah, I get it. I'm kind of, deep tournament play. I could see it paying off. He could get you 20. But I mean, this Mets lineup's pretty beat up right now. But other than that, you're not looking at him as like a top option. And as we mentioned, Hap's a better option for pretty much cheaper. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing. I mean, Nicasio, I mean, he's that boomer bust type guy. I mean, he pitched well against the Mets earlier, got the win. You also got to look. I mean, this is the second time they'll see him in 3 starts for him, so it's also something to take into consideration. And given he struggles with left-handed bats so badly, and there's a couple in there that can get to you. I mean, they're not the great elite ones, but they can still do some damage. And I think,
whoa, James Loney isn't elite, bro.
no, he's not.
Oh, okay.
So, but as you mentioned, I mean, deep tournament play at best.
Yeah. Yep.
Next one here, you got the Yankees and Twins. CC Sabathia versus Kyle Gibson. 8.5 over under here. Yankees minus 141 favorites. The price tag of CC at 9,800.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, but I mean, he's pitched well this season. I still think regression's due for him, but he's not a cash game guy for me. But I still think GPP wise, he's just definitely worth a look. Just because you look at the Twins and bottom 5 and low, but they strike out a ton against lefties, even though they do have a lot of right-handed bats. They're a boomer bust team as well, and I think kind of that's what makes CC Sabathia in that category.
Yeah, I actually think we could see a vintage CC night. I think there's potential for a really solid outing here. Twins obviously not good against lefties in terms of splits, but again, he is overpriced. I wouldn't deny that, but it doesn't really matter on this slate, So I think you can overpay and still feel pretty confident and still be able to fit some guys in. It's not like he's 12K or anything like that. So, you can still fit him in. It's just a little overpriced, but I'm in. Cash for you or just tournaments? Or are you looking at some different options for cash?
I'm looking at more so for cash. I think Rourke and Happ are probably going to be my 2. I can't see paying a Rourke and Sabathia for cash games. I think GPP wise you can do that. But I think, with Happy gives you a little extra flexibility on the slate to kind of get some bats in that you really like. And I mean, there's a lot of games that could be high scoring here. I mean, we talked about the Mets Pirates possibly being one. I think this Yankee side's good. So obviously that game in Fenway, and I think kind of Hap just allows that extra 2K to kind of get there for you.
I think that's a good call.
So, but I mean, FanDuel, 7,200 for CC Sabathia is a really nice price tag for GPPs.
Definitely.
So, are you looking to hit more so in cash?
No, I'm actually. We might be going different directions tonight, which might be really bad for me. But no, I think I'm going in a different direction.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a nice matchup, but I can definitely kind of see him using him in all formats. I think even on FanDuel, I mean, the guys up top aren't necessarily locks either.
So. Yeah, no, I mean, I do like him more on FanDuel, but I like him for tournaments quite a bit on DK as an SP2 or something. But yeah, that's pretty much all I'm looking at there.
Yeah. Next one here, you got the Tigers and Royals. Justin Verlander versus Danny Duffy. Over under 7.5. Detroit minus 116 favorites. Royals got to Kluber last night. I think that's going to kind of scare some people off of Verlander. I'm not necessarily on him, but I think he's a viable option still. I think he has a relatively safe floor. I just think I prefer Tanner Ward for a little bit cheaper, and that's kind of where I'm headed tonight.
I think that's fair, but I also think this is a pretty good matchup for Verlander. I obviously Kluber's been kind of prone to blowing up this year. Weirdly, like I don't get why, but he has a few times, and I don't think this Royals offense is as good as they were like last night on an everyday basis. So I'm not actually afraid of rostering Verlander. I think just because you do still give the Royals some respect. He's probably not in cash play, but I mean, like you mentioned, I think last night might keep some ownership down against the Royals. So I think he's super intriguing, and he does have high upside. I believe you mentioned yesterday the Royals strikeout rate's been up quite a bit over the last few weeks. So that's not even necessarily their claim to fame right now. So I do like Verlander. I think he actually has a reasonably high ceiling for pitching against the Royals tonight.
Yeah, I agree. GPPs, I think he's a fine option. I mean, obviously you're paying up to get him, which is, obviously I think it is going to be a contrarian move, and that's going to kind of make your whole lineup contrarian because you are going to have to kind of trend off of some of those bats in that Red Sox game, which will be the chalk tonight. With that being said, I mean, yeah, the Royals are striking out quite a bit. I mean, over the last 2 weeks, it is right around 23%, and that's not their norm. I mean, usually they're around 17 to 18. And you look at the back half of that lineup, I mean, it's kind of we're to that point where, okay, get around Hosmer, Kane, and Perez, and, you got some guys that you can really kind of pitch to it and rack up some strikeouts against.
Definitely. Yeah. You mentioned that group though. Hosmer's been a beast lately. So you definitely worry about that lefty versus righty matchup. But other than that, yeah. I think definitely a tournament. I think you can go CC Verlander and get really weird with some lineups. So definitely some options there that I'm looking at.
Yeah, definitely. And Danny Duffy on the other side, I'm kind of liking these Tiger bats at some of their prices. I think they're going to be a team that I sprinkle into a lot of lineups. So Duffy not really on my radar.
They're just hitting too well for me right now to go with Duffy. I do think Duffy has some upside on a normal night, but I'm not going at this Tigers team right now. They're just super feisty.
Yeah, no, definitely. On to the late games here. You got the Brewers and Dodgers. Junior Guerra for Scott Kazmir. Dodgers, the biggest favorites on the slate, minus 171. Over under 7.5. This game, I kind of like the Dodgers bats. I think Junior's kind of been a little bit. He's had some soft matchups. He's allowed a lot of hard ball rate. I think I like some of these Dodgers bats, so I think he's off the table for me. I was kind of saying the same thing with Kazmir, and I think you were on him a little bit more than I am.
Yeah, I'm like a bug to the light with this over under and the run totals and sort of the matchup here. Brewers projected for 3 runs. I just like the way Kazmir's pitched of late. I think this is a good matchup. And would it be crazy to do a Kazmir Hap sort of cash game lineup and then do a Red Sox stack?
I don't think so. I mean, you look at the Red Sox highest total on the board tonight. You look, I mean, we talked about Verlander, we talked about CC, and then kind of being at the price tag that we're not truly fond of. And I think you could look at Hap. I mean, expect reasonably him and Kazmir to kind of combine for. You're hoping maybe 30 to 35 at their prices, and kind of hoping those bats really pick up the slack there.
Yeah, so I think that might be the direction I'm going with some sort of Red Sox in my lineup. Maybe not the full lineup, but maybe a Bogarts, Ortiz sort of bats grouping, and then get some other cheap value bats. But yeah, I actually think that has a pretty high floor tonight. I'm not too worried about the Brewers sort of beating up on Kazmir that much. Yeah. Obviously, you always worry about Villar Braun and Lucroy, but other than that, I think he has some decent chances at getting some strikeouts here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that strikeout rate's up there for the Brewers. I mean, and I think, you touched on those 3 names, and I think that's kind of why I prefer Hap a little bit more. Just because, I mean, you do have a couple guys that can really get after Kazmir from that right side. I mean, obviously, we're going a next tier down, but guys like Carter and Perez, I mean, those guys have hit lefties, fairly well. So you look at that Phillies team, I can't really name anyone that scares me off, or I can name that they have to watch out for,
They definitely have cooler names, though. Like, Phillies might have the coolest name lineup. Like Maikel Franco. That is a sick first name.
Odubel.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Yeah. Even Cody Ash, I feel like he's just got, like he'll just come into the room and he's just like was poking a fire, and he's got like ash on his forearm. That's the vision I have of Cody Ash every time I see his name.
On the next game here, you got the Nationals and Padres, and Tanner Roark versus Eric Johnson, over under of 8 here. Washington minus 166 favorites. Tanner Roark is my favorite pitcher on the slates. You're obviously looking, I mean, this Padres team has been better of late, but overall, I mean, they still cannot get out of the basement as far as WOBA. And you look at Roark, I mean, he's pitched extremely well. It's in Petco. I actually like this Washington offense quite a bit, even though it is in Petco. Overall, he comes in at number 1 for me.
Hold on. Cody Ash definitely, like in another life, he was like one of those guys shoveling the coal into the trains. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like to keep it going, to stoking the fire and throwing coal in there. That's definitely what he did.
He could have
or
been
his grandfather did in the 1800s.
I was thinking more like he was like a chimney sweeper back in like England, or like that could be something,
You know what? I think that's a better call. Yeah, that's actually where we should have been going. Yeah. Okay, I see that.
All right. So now we can go back to Tanner Roark here.
Yeah, we can go back now.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree, and he's not too overpriced. He doesn't take CC out at that range for tournaments, but it is very close in terms of cash, and then you like Roark better. So gotta still like him against this Padres lineup. I mean, I love Yangervis, but he's starting to show some cracks in the old long-term hit parade, so it's not really continuing like I would have liked, especially that 2 strikeout 0 for 4 game the other day. That wasn't very fun. But yeah, they just aren't a very strong team. You got to love Will Myers and the fight he puts up every night. But him and Matt Kemp, but other than that, it's just rough.
Yeah, and I think, they have hit well. Like, it still hasn't even been enough to kind of get them out. I mean, they still rank 30th in WOBA against righties, still have a monster 24% strikeout rate. And you just look at Roark, I mean, he's pitched really well this season, 3.38 FIP, ground ball rate over 50, 21% strikeout rate. So I just think at the price tag, he's a safe cash game guy, a heavy favorite. I like those Nationals bats to kind of provide a lot of run support, and they are really my second favorite stack of the night behind the Sox.
Fair. Yeah, no, I do like a few of the other stacks here, but I think that the Nationals, at least with Murphy Harper. And again, you might have to fool around with some of the lower priced guys, the lower priced pitchers to get those guys in, but I think they're definitely worth it tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And there are, we talked about Casimir and Happ. I mean, those are the two kind of cheap guys to go after, and they're not that expensive. And even CC on FanDuel is super cheap. So he allows you kind of a lot of salary relief. So it's a 7-game slate, but you know what? We got, 7 or 8 options that you can kind of go with here.
Definitely.
So that's going to wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out thefantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.